What's up, great people, and welcome to another episode of the Fabe Effect Podcast. I'm your boy Fabe, and I'm here with another great topic, a more serious topic that we need to talk about. We talk about it all the time, but I think with so much going on in the world today, as black people, we need to talk about the current state of black America. How is the black experience in 2023? We've come a long way, but we also have a long way to go. And no other person I could think of to talk about this topic with me than the great world-renowned author and professor at Clark Atlanta University, Dr. Daniel Black. Dr. Daniel Black is here with us today. He has also released a new book called Black on Black. I love this book. This book really explains how far we've come, but I think a lot of times as black people, we don't realize how far we've come, and we don't give ourselves enough credit, and we also don't give each other enough credit, so that keeps us also stifled in a place. So I'm ready to get right into this conversation. I'm going to do a small intro. Dr. Black, just introduce yourself, talk about what you've done so far, the books that you have written, and where you are in life as a black man.
Absolutely. Well, first, let me say, Brother Fabe, thank you for having me. I'm
Always.
extremely happy about being here. I am a 30-year professor at Clark Atlanta University. This is my 30th year. I'm 7 books in, and I have 2 or 3 books on the way. So I'm excited about that. I write about the black experience because that's experience I live. That's experience I know. I also write about it because I'm interested in the future of the world. I'm interested in the future of the black community. And I think black people have a central role to play in the salvation of this planet, not just the black community, but of this planet. And so I'm very excited to be here today. I wrote Black on Black to invite us to think about black institutions, black survival, black achievement, black wonder, black majesty, black celestial existence, black beauty. And I pray we'll think about that. And also to think about the ways in which we need to do a little better as we move forward and as we step into the future to prepare a world for our children where they won't just be black, but they'll be glad to be black.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. You talked about the experiences, and the first question I want you to tackle is your experience as a black man in the world, growing up as a black boy, growing into a black man. What part of those experiences in your real life that you use to captivate America in your books? What have you experienced in your real life? You can give us just a few moments of your real life that you experienced that put you in a place to feel like you can speak to black Americans about being black in America.
Well, I think I'd say 2 things. One of those is, as a black boy, the thing I think that I was troubled about, Fabian, was that notions of manhood were too narrow. All the men seem to be the same kind of men. They seem to be the same type of men. They seem to speak the same kind of language. They seem to have the same jokes. They seem to be, they seem to all have the same favorite color, And I was interested, I absolutely have always been excited about manhood and masculinity. But I didn't want the kind of manhood other men had. I wanted the kind of manhood whereby a brother's favorite color could be orange. You know what I mean? I wanted to examine manhood and masculinity in such a way that any boy, in fact, every boy, could be included in the possibility of our fathers, in the possibility of divinity. I wanted looser boundaries around what it meant to be masculine, looser boundaries about what it meant to be male-like. That's one thing I think that always stayed in my mind. I was very, very, talented as a kid. I played the piano, I danced, I did all these other kinds of things. And often people made me wonder about just what kind of man I could become if I was doing these kinds of creative, artistic kinds of things. But what's interesting is I never wondered if God wondered. God and I never had an issue. I realized early in life that I was always fighting somebody who breathed air.
Wow.
I was never fighting the one who created me. And once I got clear about that, I kind of chuckled and I laughed, and I realized that I was struggling with people who had no power.
Yeah.
And then that made me believe that I could say something that could be transformative to the world. That I had the authority, I had the permission, I had the invitation to speak to the world so that we would understand that God never made one of anything. Like if you take flowers, you take fish,
Yeah.
right? You take trees, right? God never made one type of anything. Then that must be true for men too.
Yeah.
Right? That there must be varieties of men. You know, when you have a bouquet of flowers, there are tons of different flowers in one vase. In fact, what makes them beautiful is the juxtaposition of the difference.
Yeah.
Right? And I think part of my role, Fabian, on the planet as I live a little longer, is to help us understand and to help us fall in love with the diversity of who God is and what God is, so that we don't grab one piece of God and think we know the totality of the divine. Right?
That's heavy.
The second thing I think I'll say is, in terms of my own personal experience, I have been very, very much interested in Black people getting to the place where we are clear we can speak not just about God, but we can speak for God. We have been very good about hearing God over the years. We've been very good about obeying God. We've been very good about shouting about God. We've been very good about reading about God. We've been very good about going to church houses. We've been very, very good about seemingly submitting unto the authority of God.
Yeah.
We seem to have missed the possibility that we can speak on behalf of God.
Because
Right.
we don't believe that God is within. We're worshiping in our minds.
That's right.
The spirit is outside when God is, we are God. We are
That's
part
right.
of who he is.
That's
He
right.
made us.
And what I discovered, Fabian, is that the point of a mirror is not for you to look at yourself. The point of a mirror is for you to look at what God looks like.
Wow.
And when you can look in a mirror and see God, I think now you understand what it means to walk in divinity. And oh God, help me today. What I've grown to realize is too many of us as Black people do not at all believe that God looks anything like us. We don't believe that in the least. And as long as we don't believe that, we keep looking to other people, and we keep looking to other places. We keep looking to other books. We keep looking to other, which is why we can take the authority of the Bible, because we know somebody else wrote it.
Wow.
If a Black person, a clearly Black person, wrote a book and we were arguing or we were trying to assert that this is the new word of God for this contemporary hour, people would be up in arms and fighting, right? But some human beings wrote the first one.
Yep.
I'm just wondering why a different set of human beings couldn't write another one.
Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy right there, Doc. And you expect, you talked about, growing up in your experience, and then you talked about the manhood that seemed like it was the same thing. Why do you feel like in our culture, because I experienced the same thing, I've always been the type of, like, I was always into the arts, I was always into television, and not just television and watching it, but like I was always into, like, I want to be a part of that. How did they create that?
Sure.
And I want to make my own version of that. But for so many Black men, we're stifled to think that way, to dream, to really dream outside the bounds of protecting, surviving, being, the armor of the Black community. And why do you think that is, though? What does that come from? Is that the slavery mentality?
I think that is. I do think it's the slavery mentality, and I think part of what slavery did is slavery suggested to Black people that dreaming is white supremacy. Dreaming is for white people, right? Our job is to always exist in reality as we see it. And I think having been invited out of the dreaming tradition, if you will, what too many of us as Black people do is to believe that our achievement is always in obedience, right? Not in creation. And so I'm playing around with this notion of creating and what it means to create even in invisible places, even in divine places. I'm writing a Bible as we speak and a contemporary scripture. And ironically, as I mentioned this, it's really Black people who give me the most pushback, because they ask things like, well, how do you have the authority to do that, right? And my question that I always ask is, how did the first people have the authority?
How did John have the authority?
How did they have the authority?
Yeah.
How did Paul get the authority? How did how did King James get the authority? Who the hell is King James? Such that he has authority to speak of God. I'm really not mad about him speaking of God.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why I can't do it, right? And it seems very simple, but it's really highly, highly, highly revolutionary. Because what slavery did to us, slavery made us concede all spiritual authority unto white supremacy. So that then we wait to see whether or not white people agree before we decide something is legitimate. Right? And I'm just not going to do it. I just won't have it. Because I believe God existed before white supremacy. And I believe we knew God before white supremacy. And I believe black people brought God to this place called America, certainly in our form. And there are ways we understood God and walked with God and loved God that was extremely healthy and beneficial for us as a people. And my aim is for us to resurrect some of that.
I love that. I love that. My next question is, how have you seen the portrayal of Black Americans in media and popular culture evolve over the years, and what impact do you think that has made on our society? Because we're in an era where social media,
Sure,
social celebrities,
sure,
you can get rich overnight, you can
Sure.
become famous overnight.
Right.
How do you feel like those platforms have played into our identity almost? And do you feel like that is helping us? Is it progressing the culture, or is it keeping us in a certain place, or actually taking us back because we're now at the fingertips, at the mercy of social media?
sure. I think a couple of things. One of those is I think images of black people has certainly expanded over the years. I think from the 60s, I think there's a diversity of black images on TV, on media, in movies. There are more of us now. There's a greater diversity of our presentation. I don't think it's enough, but I think it's better. The greater thing I think, though, Fabian, is I think that as black people, in many instances, and not in all, but in many, many instances, we're afraid to, even in the media, we're afraid to tell our stories that would insult whiteness. We tell safe stories about black existence, right?
Wow.
We tell the stories of Harriet Tubman running. We'll tell that story, right? But we're afraid of Nat Turner's story on screen. In fact, when Nat Turner's story was told, it caught all kind of flack, and folk pretty much killed it. I'm waiting on the story of the Haitian Revolution, right? I'm waiting on that. I'm wondering where's that movie? Mm-hmm. That movie should have been made a very, very, very long time ago. I think this is extremely important, because I think what ends up happening is, even in our creativity, we are still enslaved, right? In other words, I think our imagination is still in many ways plantationed, right? So that we'll dream, but then we'll look around to see if others find our dreams valuable.
Yeah, it's,
right?
it's even as small as, I've noticed in current day, it's even as small as when you're doing something and you say something, you say, no offense. No, right.
Offense, absolutely.
Because they're not saying, for years, no one has said no offense to black people.
Right.
But we say no offense so quickly.
Absolutely. And we still whisper when white people arrive.
Wow.
Right? We'll be loud with each other.
Yeah.
But when they arrive, we whistle. There are all kinds of ways when we're talking about color, but we don't think that white people might agree. We'll just tap our hand, and anybody else black knows what we mean, right?
Or in restaurants, in places where social gatherings, you will go to a restaurant where it's majority black people, and the energy is different than when you go in a restaurant and it's a mixed crowd.
That's right.
Because, like you said, we're shrinking ourselves to exist in that space.
And part of the problem, too, is that too many of us, and I include myself in this, we have fallen in love with white materiality. We want so much of what white people have. We want so much of America. We want so much of Western conceived riches that we don't want to ruin, seemingly, our chance and our opportunity, right, to get a piece of the pie. But as I was telling the class the other day, it shows how much we as black people are drunk with the wine of the world. Because as we're reaching for a piece of the American pie, I think we must have forgotten that we baked it.
Yes.
So why do I need a piece of that pie? Just make one.
Make one.
We're the pie baker.
Wow.
Remember, we were the cooks.
Wow.
If I want a piece of the pie, why would I go looking for it?
It's almost like the American dream. We're
the dreamer.
the American. But what is that dream?
We built the dream. We built the dream. Why am I dreaming? I made it. You know,
Wow.
but it really shows how distorted our image of ourself is, and it shows how much we feel like subconsciously we need white inclusion for a thing to really be valid.
Yeah, or you need the acceptance of they call it the crossover. I know in
Right.
entertainment, the first thing you think about is like who crosses over first, and what
Right.
does crossover mean? Meaning you get other people, other cultures to
Sure.
believe in what you're
Sure,
doing.
we do it. We do it even in black colleges. There are ways that parents boast about black kids going to white schools, right? Differently than or than the way parents boast about black kids going to black schools. There are ways that even black schools participate in this. You know, we're the Harvard of the South, right? Not only is that insulting, but I don't think Harvard ever says that, you know,
There's the HBCU
BCU of the
version of
North.
it.
Harvard has never considered saying that,
Yeah,
right? Because they don't exalt us, right, as we're constantly exalting them.
that's
Right?
so true.
But the truth is, black schools have always been more excellent. Always. You know, when Du Bois went to Harvard, right? Du Bois did go to Harvard, and Du Bois did well at Harvard. But what people sleep on is Du Bois did well at Harvard because he first went to Fisk,
Yeah,
right? It was Fisk
prepared.
that got Du Bois together. He just rode Harvard. In fact, really, truly, Du Bois at Harvard was a compliment to Harvard, not
Yeah.
Du Bois. Right? But we celebrate Du Bois moving through Harvard
Yeah.
as if Du Bois being at Harvard right, was an achievement. No. Harvard's achievement was taking him.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. And we, to have these conversations and talking about, being black in America, we have to talk about, police brutality. And it's I don't know. This topic always angers me because as a black man, do I walk around feeling like I'm afraid or something? No. But I do walk around consciously thinking when I see a police car, something in my nervous system changes automatically.
Sure.
When I pull up beside a police car, I sit up straight, or I make sure my hands are on the wheel, or I turn my. One thing I do, I've realized, and I think we do it subconsciously. I turn my music down when I see police cars.
Sure.
I'm like, well, this is my music, this is my radio, this is my car. Why am I turning my music down? And I think it's just innately in me because we're built to fear police.
Sure.
And then now, like I said, police brutality, we're constantly seeing black men being killed, being innocent and being killed by police officers.
Sure.
And yes, people are being indicted, and yes, people are going to jail or losing their jobs, but that's still not sending the message clear enough to say this is not right. So what do you think should change, or what do you think we're doing wrong as black people? Because all we can do is represent ourselves. What are we doing wrong to almost, I guess, aid this continued hate crime against us?
I think we misunderstood a couple of things, Brother Fabian. One of those is that black people, and particularly black men for certain reasons, we are still fugitives and we don't know it. In other words, we are all runaway slaves. Right now. We're runaway slaves because the slavery, the bondage America had for us, we refused it.
Wow.
So we are runaways. The fact that we went to Clark Atlanta University and graduated, right? We are runaway slaves because what was supposed to happen, right, was that we were supposed to get in trouble. We were supposed to go to the prison industrial system, right? Those were the things that were supposed to happen. And if that had happened, they wouldn't have worried about you. Now, the college degrees, thinking, critical people, right? We are still runaway slaves. And the job of police are nothing but evolved slave catchers.
Yeah.
The job of the police is to control you, me. That's the job of the police, right? And so what we have to understand is when police are driving up down the street, they're patrolling, trying to catch runaway slaves. That's us. We don't think we're runaway slaves. We think our ancestors were runaway slaves. We're runaway slaves right now because we're trying to go against what this society has basically set up for us in terms of our lives, in terms of our being. Every time I say I love myself, every time I look at you and say that you're a handsome, beautiful, wonderful black man, we are going against what society has demanded. And so they have to send their forces because we're threatening to dismantle black hatred.
Wow.
Right? And that's a fugitive position. And so we've got to understand the reason it doesn't trouble me is because I understand now that every policeman has been trained to know and to understand that my prosperity, right, is precisely what America fears. And they have to actually pay attention to, they have to watch, they have to surveil us. And police brutality is part of that surveillance.
And that's so true. I mean, I think that we keep seeing our brothers fall, and we're put in a place of, yes, we're mad, yes, we're angry, but we're also scared. We're also we're also fearful. So
Absolutely.
we're not necessarily doing anything but talking amongst each other about our frustration and where's the action. I mean, yes, I marched a couple times, but after I marched, I didn't feel like I did anything.
Sure.
And it is, so I guess my frustration is what can I do? What can I do when I'm also just another target too? It just hadn't knocked on my door yet. And that's the fearful part. I think that for black men, we don't know where to go from here and how to change. All we can do is, I guess, be on our best behavior.
Well, I think we can do that, but I think there are other things too. I think we haven't learned from our ancestors well.
Okay.
Because there's what I call the art of subversion. The art of subversion is knowing how to dance around the enemy without the enemy noticing. Our ancestors mastered this. See, there would be no Clark Atlanta University if they hadn't. Let's be honest, Fabian. Between 1860 and 1890, almost all black colleges were founded. Not all of them, but almost all of them. By broke black ex-slaves. How the hell did that happen? Where did they get these materials from? How did that happen? These were people who, according to history, couldn't even read. But as soon as the doors of these schools opened, black kids flooded in. Not to a kindergarten, this was a college.
Yeah.
How did we learn to read literally overnight? That's not what happened. Something else was true that history has never said. We already knew how to read when we built the colleges. But we were playing the game so that other folks would think we didn't. Why? So they would keep their eye and keep their focus off of us. That's the art of subversion. We knew who the enemy was, and we knew how to play against the enemy for our own survival. Part of the problem now is we're not clear who the enemy is anymore.
So we stopped playing the game.
We're not clear.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing now is we've now convinced ourselves in many instances that you're the enemy if I'm black, that I'm the enemy if we're black, right? Because you and I want the same thing. So we're fighting each other for the same thing. Listen, that is ridiculousness, that's foolishness, and that's silly. We got to get clear once again who the enemy is. Because if we're not careful, we're going to kill each other on behalf of the enemy. Let me.
Wow, you just said it all, and it's so much, and I sit here and not only just as somebody who's prideful and love being black, but almost guilty of, setting up shop almost against each other because we're trained to think.
Absolutely. And how do you know we find each other as the enemy? Because we call each other nigga.
Yeah.
They used to be the ones who called us nigga. And you could not have made our ancestors call each other nigga. You couldn't have forced them to do it.
Yeah.
But now, not only do we do it, we sell it, we sing it, we rap it, we toss it to each other in love making. I'm talking good.
And then we told each other that it's the power of, we took the power out the word.
No, you didn't.
No, we didn't.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You assumed white supremacy, and you were hoping for that power when you said the word.
I hope y'all listening. I just hope y'all listening, and I hope y'all hearing this well, because it goes to the next question I have for you. Being born white is enough. Just being born white in America is enough. Whether it's you're born poor,
Absolutely.
whether you're born rich, it's enough.
Absolutely.
And we've come from slavery to having these schools to being lawyers, doctors, and yet we still don't think we're enough.
Right.
Why is that?
Because we're trying to figure out how we can trade black life for white supremacy's materialism. Most black people would trade it if they could. That's the problem. And the problem is we think that houses, land, cars, we sing about it all the time, bling, bling, all rap, not all rap, that's far too big a generalization. Too much rap talks about money and material gain and cars, right? We have fallen in love with the things it takes a plantation to create.
And so that's why we're not creating generational
But we just
wealth.
don't want to be on the plantation. But we want the goods of the plantation.
Wow.
See, we've got to get rid of the desire for the plantation, period. Not only I don't want to be in the shack, I don't want the big house either. See, we want the big house badly. We want it badly. Well, the minute you get the big house, you got to have slaves to keep it. So who's going to be the slave this time becomes the question.
Wow. So we're enslaving each other almost.
In fact, dreaming of it because it's my turn. It's my turn to be in the White House, but it's not your turn. It's not your turn. It wasn't their turn in the first place, but it's not your turn either, right? The greatest joy is burn the whole damn thing down. Burn the whole thing down. Because the joy of life is not the acquisition of material things. The joy of life is the discovery that you don't need it.
Wow. And when we, like you said, we sit here and we get so caught up in materialistic things. We get so caught up in what the man is saying. I feel like they're enjoying it because like now they don't have to do anything to us. They don't have to kill us. We're doing it to ourselves. We're creating the cycle that they created a long time ago, but we're doing it to each other. And I think now in the political realm, where do you feel like is the black experience even considered now? Because I feel like politics is almost a separate entity than black experience. It's like you have White House, you have the what's going on in the presidential election, you have all this thing going on with Trump, with all these people, and then you have the black people over here, and we've gotten so, myself included, we've gotten so used to them doing them that we don't know what's going on. I know I'm always like, I don't know what's going on in the political realm. Why don't we feel like we have any power in that world, and why don't we just give it to them? I feel like we give it to them. They're the politicians. They're the Republicans and the Democrats.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. Well, one of those things is that too many of us cannot see how even our presence, much less our vote, matters either way. Too many of us cannot see how us voting is going to tip anything in any direction. Because America is only about 13, 14% black, right? So that's one thing. A second thing, though, is our imaginations are incarcerated, meaning we still are dreaming of being in ownership of this white machine. Mm-hmm. We're dreaming of being ownership of this America. Instead of dreaming a black existence, right, that would give us the opportunity to birth a world that would blow our own minds, right? Our own stuff on our own terms, right? It's like part of the problem with HBCUs even today is HBCUs are wonderful, wonderful places, but part of the problem is that HBCUs are think of themselves as the black version of white schools. That's not what an HBCU is supposed to do. Yeah. It's not what it's supposed to be for, right? It's like, if we're not careful, we dream of heaven in plantation terms, right? Streets of gold, right? Eating all day long. But see, when you dream of heaven in that way, the part we're not saying, the part we don't even think of, but subconsciously, if somebody's eating all day, somebody's cooking all day too. Mm-hmm. Well, that's gonna be you, right? See, we're dreaming of plantation. See, we're in this bondage even in the afterlife, right? And so what we've got to do is get free of the paradigmatic structures that govern American society. And when we got to start dreaming our own existence on our own term. And we got to start understanding that life and joy and happiness is really not connected to materiality. Mm. It's really connected to us just being together. And see, if we valued each other that way, what we'd understand is whenever we get together, heaven arrives. Mm-hmm. Right? But until we get there, everything is going to feel deficient. We're always going to be looking for some leader somewhere to change our world, right, politically, etc. And I think it's important for us to be included in politics. I think it's critically important for us to vote. But what I also think is it's critically important for us to birth some institutions that white folks don't know anything about, are not committed to, are not even allowed into, that govern and cover us. At one point, we had this thing called the Black Church, where we could go and we had Sunday school and we had BTU and we had summer programs, etc. And what we need now is some other institutions where we take black kids to, where black kids don't even have the option, where they learn about themselves, where they learn black history. Folks are talking about all of these issues in terms of teaching black histories in public school, and public schools won't do it. I'm not mad at public schools, because public school's job is not to teach my child who they are. Right. The job of a public school in America is to teach people to love America. Yep. I'm not mad at that. My job is to send a child to school who already loves him or herself. Yep. Right. But the only way for that to happen is we have to have our own institutions where that happens. And until we do that, right, our children are always going to feel like they're in a bread line begging.
Yeah, they are. And to close out, I want to talk about Black on Black, and I want to talk about your tour you just came off of. Throughout all the places that you went on your tour, what place do you feel like impacted you the most? And where you took that energy and say, you know what, I got to keep writing, I got to keep doing this, I got to keep doing this work, I got to keep advocating for my people. Is there a place on your tour that you feel like you had that moment that it gave you the energy to keep going?
Well, I have to say, everywhere I went on this tour was packed. Everywhere I went was packed, just
Amazing.
packed. It was just fantastic. Oakland, I went to Oakland, California. I went to Chicago. Went to New York. I went to some of everywhere. But I think a place that really, really, really moved me emotionally, ironically, was Davidge Auditorium at Clark Atlanta University, because it was on Super Bowl Sunday. Mm-hmm. So I really thought very few people were coming. I didn't remember that it was the Super Bowl Sunday when we were planning this, and then we realized that we had already planned it, and it was, the date was already out, and I was like, oh God, nobody's gonna come, but it's gonna be all right. If 10 people come, it'll just be what it was. And it was hordes of people. It was fantastic. And what I think I was in conversation with a great scholar named Dr. Jelani Favors, and what was wonderful about that event was that my own people, my own students, my own colleagues, my own folks gathered and said, this black man is a national treasure.
Yeah.
This is one of us. This brother is home, and brother, we see you, and we value you, and we're clear about who you are. It was just the most remarkable thing. So I think I'll just never forget that.
Awesome. I'm gonna close out with this. I too am America.
Yes.
They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes.
Yes.
But I laugh, and I eat well, and I grow strong. But tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes.
Yes.
And they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed.
Yes.
Because I too am America.
Yes.
Langston Hughes.
Langston Hughes.
What does that mean to you?
I would modify what Langston Hughes has said slightly, if this great ancestor wouldn't mind, and that is, if they don't see my beauty at the table, I will build another table.
Yeah.
And I will have my own dinner.
And I think that's where we are now. I think as we close out, people, we have to build our own tables. We have to not be afraid to go against their grain, because we built America.
Absolutely.
And I think we've allowed them to trick us to think that we did not, but we did. This is our place. We made this space what it is today. So many things that go on in the world that would not go on if black people were not a part of it. And I think where we go from here is just to continue to love each other, but more importantly, continue to support each other and continue to hold each other accountable.
But also, Fabian, we did build America. It's absolutely true. But what I want us to do as black people is not rest in the clarity that we built America. That is true. I want that to reinforce to us that we can build another nation too.
Wow.
If we built this, we can build another one. Not just that we built this and there's nothing else and I got to have this one. No. That we can build another universe, right? As soon as we decide we need it.
Wow. Well, I'm just honored to even have you in the room.
Oh, brother.
I'm honored to have this conversation. This conversation go on forever. And I want you to know that I support you wholeheartedly. I've always
sir.
supported you since a student. I've
Oh,
always
man.
admired you.
Oh, man.
I've always looked up to you, and just to know that the students now get to experience Dr. Black,
Yes, sir.
get to experience Dr. Kimbrough, get to experience all these great black people on the campus of Clark University just brings me so much joy. And I challenge those students who are experiencing you, not to just experience you, but take you into their life and take you into their world. And I challenge all the black people out there to continue to build upon what we already have. Remember, the best leader works to make even better leaders. Yes. Until next time, y'all, Dr. Daniel Black, thank you so much for being here. God bless you, and God bless you.
Ashe.